Last year, the government marked International Women's Day by announcing that they'd be holding a referendum to remove the constitutional reference to a woman's role in the home. And this year, on International Women's Day, we will vote on it. So 3 years after the Citizens' Assembly on Gender Equality, and with completely different language to what was recommended, here we are. I said this when the referendum date was announced, and I'll say it again. Holding these referendums on International Women's Day reeks of a cynical PR move by the government. The amount of confusion and sheer misinformation circulating ahead of the referendum votes this week comes down to a failure by the government. The process of these referendums was rushed from start to finish, all because the government was determined to remove the Women in the Home clause of the Constitution on International Women's Day. The rush to meet this deadline has led to debates being cut short, rising confusion amongst voters, and even to An Post being unable to deliver information booklets to voters in time. Why on earth didn't you prioritise a clear and coherent explanation of the referendums and their legal ramifications, rather than the symbolism of holding the referendums on the 8th of March? Every year, Ceann Comhairle, on this week, we have statements on gender equality in this House, discussing the steps we need to take to achieve true equality. And unfortunately, we can all recycle and reuse our speaking notes year on year because the same problems always remain. So here I go again. Our abortion services are still not up to standard. Women waited generations for abortion services in Ireland, but still people are forced abroad and are intimidated outside GP clinics. Marie O'Shea finalised the review of the abortion legislation in April of last year. Her recommendations couldn't have been clearer. The mandatory 3-day waiting period needs to be removed. The threatened criminalisation of doctors needs to end, and there needs to be more clarity when it comes to providing abortion care in cases of fetal abnormalities. All of these recommendations were approved by the Health Committee, but the government haven't acted. Why? When is the government going to amend the law to remove the needless and condescending barriers to vital healthcare? Secondly, there are so many aspects to women and girls' healthcare that need research and resources. Every aspect of menopause, from medical to economic, is understudied and it is under-resourced. We need accessible HRT, training for GPs, and crucially to provide information about the reality of peri- and post-menopause to women so we know and understand the symptoms. Women suffering with hyperemesis still cannot receive a prescription from their GP for life-changing medicine to relieve this chronic condition. And access to home births is still completely inadequate, with the lack of care choice causing unnecessary medical interventions, trauma, and costing some families thousands of euro to access home births privately. When I raised the issue of family homelessness in this debate last year, one-parent families made up 55% of homeless families, despite making up just 20% of the families in Ireland. Now, one-parent families make up 75% of all families entering homelessness since the eviction ban was lifted, according to the National One-Parent Family Alliance. And of course, these rising figures only scrape the surface of the true problem because they only take into account the families accessing emergency accommodation, not those families that are returning to cramped childhood homes with their parents or relying on the kindness of friends. The biggest decrease we've seen in child and family homelessness was while the eviction ban was in place. They are the facts, and the government lifted it anyway. Reinstating the eviction ban, tackling the issue of family homelessness, of the poverty rates among one-parent families are all vital women's rights failures that the government could and should be tackling, but instead they continue to spiral on a downward trend. Government provision of domestic violence refuge spaces is another thing I want to raise and do every year, and it is still completely inadequate. Under the Istanbul Convention, Ireland should be providing at least 515 refuge spaces. We currently have 141. CUAN, the agency dedicated to tackling and reducing domestic, sexual and gender-based violence, has been tasked with doubling the number of refuge spaces, falling well below what is needed. Announcing that pitiful target, Minister McEntee told The Independent that we have to be realistic about what we can achieve by the end of 2026. I want to say that we have to be realistic about how the government are failing victims of domestic violence. The government's new domestic violence leave is half the international standard, providing for only 5 of the 10 days that is required. There's a lot of discussion this week around the role and recognition of family carers. Every one of those carers provides an invaluable service to this state, but the state does not and has never rewarded them for it and has never really supported them to carry out that care. Respite services, in many instances, are literally nowhere to be found. The carer's allowance is pitiful and restrictive. I believe it is the state's responsibility to provide care to those that are ill. I believe it is the state's responsibility to provide affordable childcare, and I believe it's the state's responsibility to provide disability services. The Taoiseach's flippant comments the other day that the care of children and the elderly are not the state's responsibility were tone deaf and lacking any understanding of the struggles families in Ireland are going through. From childcare to disability services to caring for older parents, the state provides only a fraction of the support that's required, and the remainder of that responsibility falls on the family carer, most often a woman. International Women's Day is a day of celebration, but it's also an exercise in frustration, year on year raising the same issues and hoping the next year I won't be standing here documenting how all of these issues have been ignored yet again. I hope in the little time that this government has left that it will take concrete steps to improve women's healthcare, domestic violence supports and support for carers. But Ceann Comhairle, I'm not holding my breath.
Thank you.